Hi all. So we should be live at this moment. So just to explain to you all in the audience, I'm just going on to make sure that people can actually see the live stream, and then we'll be able to get started so they'll know what the reason is for, and there we are. The reason that we're actually having this, I'll call it a virtual pop-up press conference. So to any of the viewers that are actually starting to come on, we were going to do a impromptu protest and press conference over at the Habitat for Humanity Restore. That new Restore is in the where the old ABC Liquor is. Um, you all have heard me before when it pertained to doing previous lives discuss habitat and things that have been happening. So what happened is we want to draw attention in the biggest way to habitat and the things that they've been doing. We want to talk about how that's detrimental to the community and the impact that it actually has had and things that need to be done on a larger scale. We decided not to let the weather stop us from being able to do this by getting our viewers here on this actual live video. And a lot of stuff is an actual doozy. And so one of the things that I challenge people to do, not only to listen to my live videos, but when we ask you to do something or take action, we're asking you to do that for a reason. There will be some follow-up call to actions that'll be on my page, the people that are on here as they introduce themselves, and then also the accidental activist page. It is imperative that Habitat be held accountable for what they have done. And right now, that's not happening because we, as the people in the community, are not coming to the table. And many of the people that are already at the table think that because people had to get their homes or chose to get their homes through Habitat, that Habitat has done them a favor. And that's actually not the case. So I became aware of the issues at Habitat back in May of 2021. We started with an email chain by I looped in the Alachua County Commissioners. I looped in the City Commission, each city manager, also the county managers, and then some of the residents that I actually spoke with that actually have homes that were built by Habitat for Humanity. We have Nikki Lee on here, who I greatly appreciate because that's how I first got the information related to Habitat and what has happened and occurred. And so we have Nikki and then we have Isabella who are going to tell their stories. And then Carla is going to tell, oh, we lost Nikki, so maybe she'll come back on. Carla is going to tell her story as a former employee of Habitat and what happened and took place when what happened to her when she attempted to stand up and actually advocate for members of people or homeowners that got homes from Habitat. So what we'll do is I have Nikki to introduce herself. I want her to be able to tell her story because she can tell it better than I can. And then we'll go to Carla next.
The phones are going in and out. Hi, I'm Nikki Lee. I'm a homeowner through Habitat Humanity.
Okay, Nikki, go ahead and tell us why did you reach out to myself and to Carla?
Okay. The first time I reached out was when I first moved in. I noticed water where one
You
of
need to
my
move in.
pipes broke inside of my wall, and
Wait a minute. So how long have you been in your home? How long has your home
I,
been built?
I've been in this house for a year and 8 months.
Okay.
And the first thing I noticed when we first moved here was a pipe bust in my main bathroom. It took a while for them to come out. When they did, they had an attitude about the whole situation. They patched it. It was full of mold and everything, and they just put everything back and brought me paint and told me to paint it. And then I started noticing cracks on the walls and the doors. And then they brought me some caulk and told me to caulk it myself. So ever since then, this house is pretty much falling apart. Like my foundation on my floors is separating.
Tell them about your mold and things that you've had to purchase in response to
Okay.
it.
Since I've been here, I have two humidifiers. They're about three, almost 400 a piece. I had to go buy a brand new AC unit, was almost four. It dictates how much water this house is actually holding, because within 30 minutes I can pour out at least more than a gallon of water out of here. I done lost clothes, shoes, Part of being on Habitat, I informed them that my 16-year-old is highly allergic to mold and everything else, and we've been visiting the hospital more than a little bit because of the mold issue.
Tell me other things you shared about, like the pictures on your wall and the cracks in the wall throughout the
Yeah,
house.
the cracks on the wall. I mean, I can go through and show y'all the cracks on the wall. They told me it was a hairline. I can actually stick my pinky through it. It originally started in my baby room. They came out and copped it and just spread it more than what it is. So now, pretty much this whole house has cracks on the walls, all the
What
way
can you show
from.
anybody? Can you show them your floors or any of that?
Oh yeah. So these are my floors in the hallway. This is how they left it. Try to
Hold
figure
on,
out
I'm
how
trying
to
to make you bigger.
turn my camera. I don't know how to turn the camera. I'm just gonna turn the whole phone. These are
Okay.
my walls. That's my floors.
I know you.
And this house
I
is
know you
20
lying.
months old.
Yeah. And it's worse. This one has gotten bigger.
Oh, wow.
It's to the point where my doors don't even close. And you can walk on the floor and feel it shifting still.
So, what has been the response from Habitat when you've reached out?
They told me they were gonna come out and patch it. I told them I don't want anything patched. I want it done right. Um so they sent some floor people here. The guy actually pulled the floor up and told me immediately to go and find me a lawyer because this is nothing that can be fixed.
And how's your treatment been with Beth? I know you named Beth, and who were others when you attempted to advocate for yourself?
She's been very nasty, rude, disrespectful. Um I can talk to her and ask her to do something. She'll pretty much walk off and act like she don't hear me talking to her. I've been telling her about this floor for about over a year, and still nothing's been done. They call themselves doing a contract, and this contract has been about 5 or 6 months to get it fixed. And somebody just came out Monday, peeled the floor up, and left it just like this. They walked out and left. They said it was nothing they could do.
Okay, and what is Beth's position at Habitat?
Um, she's the contractor. She's actually the contractor. She the one says where the house is going, how it's going down, and where is it being put.
So I wanted you to be able to tell your story, and so that others will know. In response to me getting the information from Miss Lee, I actually went and started knocking on doors in neighborhoods where people had Habitat homes. What I found out is many people have moved out of their homes. I have 4 people that actually had to move out of their homes because of the mold being so bad and Habitat refusing to come out and actually do anything. I had a person, they had a leak their with their AC when it did explode, that they came and did patchwork, but there's mold that was actually up under the AC. They have a little machine that they put on the wall that shows how much humidity is in the air, and it actually is dangerous. Habitat made many people promises. Some say that their whole foundation is going in the home where the home is actually leveled, or uneven. So even till you can feel the humps as you walk on the particular floor. Other people took me around walking outside where I could see cracks throughout the foundation on the outside of the house. In response, I did receive a follow up from David, who I guess is the president of Habitat's board, and also Scott Winsler. So y'all know me, I'm the public records request queen, and I asked for public records requests. I never got any of the records that I actually requested. Additionally, other things that I found out about Habitat is not only are they building these homes, when I spoke with other people or contractors, they don't know how Habitat homes are actually passing inspection. And so I have questions as it relates to the city and the county on how that is happening. I also found out that many people were told that they would have to get a home in the areas with the highest crime or be removed from the program, which is actually illegal. So it's actually a violation of fair housing policies. Also, I've been told by multiple people that they were forced to get a second mortgage. And even when they stated that they didn't want to take out a second mortgage on their homes, they were told, well, if you in 55 years, you'll probably be dead anyway. And so I
Yep.
want to point out to people that are viewers, the reason for home ownership is to be able to leave a legacy. It is to be able to have something. You build generational wealth. There is no value in a home if you are purchasing that home and taking out a second mortgage in order to get into the home. You'll never own it. Additionally, I've learned through all of this that Habitat is advertising 0% interest loans. Once you get into the house, they're selling the loan off, and then people's mortgage payments are going up a few $100s a month because now interest has now been attached or tacked onto the loan. We wanted to make sure that we put this in the public purview because us trying to migrate behind the scenes and behind this and trying to get it worked out with homeowners and on their behalf, we're not actually getting anywhere. So the reason that we want to bring Carla on is at one time she was an actual employee of Habitat. And when she was an employee of Habitat, Ms. Lee and a few others actually reached out to her in order to get help and assistance with advocating on their behalves because they were made promises that were not adhered to. They were even told they had to buy home warranties and then also pay homeowners association fees. And there were things that they were supposed to get by paying those two, and they never got either of those. The reason that this is important before Carla talks to you about her experience is because much of the work that Habitat does, it is money that is gifted and many, many donors throughout the community. And we want you to reach out to those donors after we are done this evening. And I'll give you a list of those donors before we get off. Additionally, Habitat has had land that has been gifted by the city. They're often looking for land that is gifted by the county. It is not okay for Habitat, whose entire premise is to help people obtain home ownership that they claim typically would not be able to if they're actually obtaining homes that they can afford or that they'll actually never own. But also, too, and you all know I'm a realtor by trade, if you have a home that is falling apart within a year of you building that home, whereas the foundation, there is none, roofs are caving in, floors are falling apart, floods and mold, a person can't even sell that home and get out of it if they wanted to in order to be able to move somewhere else. So that means you have people that are displaced and having to go back to renting, although they have a home. They can't afford to pay both. So then that means they're getting a foreclosure on their record, and the Habitat is just reselling the home. And so basically it defeats the purpose that it should have. Habitat is not, especially in Alachua County, is not a institutional organization that we should be entering into contracts with, like in any of the affordable housing models that we're looking at. When I escalated this to some of the commissioners, County Commissioner Mary Helen Wheeler came out and spoke with Nikki and actually told Nikki, what was it that you should be glad they gave you a home?
Yeah. I should be glad they gave me a home and a affordable home. And what she said, I can stay here for 30 years. It's something she said, but it was rude and disrespectful, and I haven't spoken to her or heard from her since then.
And so
Like
just to be
giving
clear,
me something and I'm actually paying for it.
yeah. And Habitat didn't give anybody anything. The criteria to be approved for a home loan through Habitat is actually more rigorous than the traditional criteria of a USDA or a FHA loan. So I want to be clear with that with people. In addition to them having to do all of the same credit parameters and be within a certain income guideline, they additionally have to work, where they call it sweat equity, as it relates to their getting into their homes. So there's a lot of hoops that are being jumped through. But outside of that, we have, because of sponsors and donors, Habitat gets millions of dollars, and it should not be okay to build homes that are not quality for people who truly need them, in addition to not be held accountable for their actions, which are extremely egregious. And then third, when we're looking at our municipalities and there's this land and we have such a shortage in affordable homes, our municipalities should be a lot. And when I say that, I mean our city government and our county government, they should be more deliberate about ensuring that organizations that are building homes that are affordable are actually building quality homes, or it keeps us in that same realm of having a housing shortage. So next, we're going to have Carla to come on and actually talk about her experience with Habitat, trying to advocate for people within the communities and what actually Habitat did to her and what Carla's next steps are. I think we're going to give her a moment. I think we're having technical issues. So while she's doing that, I'm going to go and see if there's any questions that anyone actually may have while we're waiting for Carla's sound to come in. And just to let you know, while she's doing that, Carla was an employee of Habitat. Once Miss Lee and a few others reached out to her, she would actually go to Beth and to other peoples in the organization, trying to advocate on behalf of people within the community. Because when people think of Habitat, they think of Carla. Carla also was demeaned. She also was talked down to. She was basically told to stay in her lane and that it was not her business. One of the things that she was very clear about, advocating for the people in our community, was her business. In response to Carla's advocacy, she was turned around. A retaliation took place and transpired. She started to do a documentation, and then Habitat, because they could not, well, they told her they weren't terminating her. They were stating that they got rid of her department completely, although she's brought in more money than she actually was told to bring in. And so now Carla's back. So I want Carla tells her story better than I can.
So yeah, so I'm gonna bring it back a little bit to right before I talked to Nikki Lee. So in the beginning of COVID, beginning of 2020, David Weiss came on, and his main concern from our Vision 2020 meeting was that he wanted to move as far away from the habitat model as possible. And Habitat International typically builds houses in a way that their mission is to build communities and hope. And so they took all of the necessary steps to do that. They created a department, and we had an equitable department. And then David Weiss came in, and his main objective was to move us far away from the habitat model because they wanted to own property, they wanted to own land. And one of the things that he came in was about a CLT, which we had already through our agency did advocacy against. And so he and I started talking about, if they want to move away from the habitat model, are you telling our donors? They tried to create a separate foundation. Are you telling our donors? They started pushing these HOP loans, which are balloon loan payments. And he was I'm inside the office and I'm listening to him tell family services that they don't have an option to take this. He's telling family services, like, if they don't want the property, there's plenty of people out there that need a house. They don't have to live in our houses. They don't have to be on our program. So just totally no regard for the family homeowners. At the same time that I started advocating for fairness and trying to keep the program and help build that generational wealth, right? Because we were not just building houses. We did more than just build homes. My problem came with Mr. Weiss, and I don't mind change, but when that change is detrimental to the homeowner, then I have a problem. So when I started being very vocal, Mr. Weiss, at the time that I was being very vocal, Christine Thompson was my supervisor. In December, when I met Nikki, I worked as, let me back up a little bit. At the time David came in, I had a supervisor that was Christine Thompson. So my program was actually under the family services. And then during the summer, we added advocacy to our program. And when we had that advocacy, I started being treated a whole lot different because I started advocating for the people in my community. I started with the Celebration Oaks neighborhood that Habitat had built. They had, oh God, stories, the foundation. I went to tell you a story. It's a true story. I went to Jim Schwat, who's on the construction team. And it was about one of the houses that sits next to the park. And I told him, I said, that foundation wasn't done right. It looks like it's built on a pile of dirt. His response to me was, I'm surprised it hadn't slid yet. And so if you have knowledge, why are we not doing something? Scott Winsler sent me to that community because they had been collecting homeowner dues from that community. And what they wanted to do, what they had been doing, what the homeowners do, not giving them an option about what they do in their community, but they had been paying a yard man or somebody to cut the grass whenever they cut it. And that's what they were doing with these homeowner dues when they could have been doing so much more. When I reached out to those residents, they were so distraught, so frustrated. They have been through this for years. Their houses don't have any value. They can't resell and they're stuck. And these, I know Nikki talked about her house being 20 months old, but I have to note in this press conference, when she reached out to us, her house was less than a year old.
Yep.
And part of that problem, what I'm seeing is people like Nikki Lee, what I hear in the office is they get ignored because they advocate for ourselves. I do know, and I'm not going to put the number out there, that Nikki was in a position, and I only know this from the office, that she was in a position to go buy her home. She chose our program for the affordability, not because she couldn't go get a mortgage on her own. So she was already off rip an advocate for herself. She didn't take the first property that they gave her, even though they tried to make her take it. It was small, and she started pushing back on them. No, I want to buy something that I can invest in. This is an investment, and y'all not going to throw nothing on me. And so when they're taking people into this program, they're advertising zero interest loan and Habitat finances, and we're going to service, and it's all good. But as soon as you start complaining, they sell your mortgages. When Mr. Weiss came on, they started selling them in batch as a way for them to make money. So a lot of these people that were these new, and I'm not talking about old mortgages. I'm talking about these people are less than 2 years. Less than 2 years they've been in the program, promised zero interest loans, and in a year that goes away. And it has been at the direction of Mr. Weiss. So in the middle of 2020, I actually got Nikki at the end of 2020 when she sent me some pictures. Her floor wasn't torn up at that time, but her windowsill was coming loose. She had a crack in her floor. That was one crack went through her floor, up her wall, across her ceiling, and down the other side. And I went to Mr. Weiss and I started talking to him. And he told me that I think these people are trying to make us look bad. So I'm going to call Inquanda Ja, which he did. And he said that she said, we don't have any, these are his words. We don't have nothing to worry about. All I got to do is address the concerns. But for him, he wanted to address the concerns the cheapest way out and how he wanted. Miss Lee, who is responsible for over $100,000 in debt because of this house, wanted her concerns addressed to her satisfaction, which they should have been. When I went into Christine Thompson's office to advocate for Nikki Lee, I was reprimanded. Number one, I'm not supposed to advocate for our homeowners, but wait a minute, you hired me as the advocate. You hired me as the equity person. And I've been doing I got my employee evaluations where I've been superb up until Mr. Weiss came here. Then I became a thorn in his side because I'm still going to stand on the side of right. He changed my job description to management, but wouldn't change my pay. With the promise of pretty much being a team player, I had to get on board with what the board wanted to do. But if the board was doing things that were detrimental to our clients, I wanted them to explain that to me and explain it to our clients and donors. That's all I asked for. Around December, when I got those things from Nikki, I no longer had a supervisor. I became the department manager. I was overwhelmed with work. I was the only person in that department. I advice about not taking contract anyway, and I reprimanded when they can't be finished. And I pushed back on David about changing my position without increasing my pay. I was told in a recording with me and him and Scott that I made, and I'm the only Black employee there. We're not discriminating against you. We're not mad with you about advocating for homeowners, but you make the same thing everybody else make, and you got to take my word for it. I won't show you. With that being said, I started taking some steps to do some independent analysis about my job. I also know during the time that I got it, that she got reprimanded for reaching out to me. But that's what they hired me for. And you hired me from the community where you're talking about these people live. So these people that you're talking about are my people. And so he and I started going back and forth. In July, he tried to overwhelm me with work. That wouldn't make me quit. I was still competing for grants. I'm not a grant writer, but I've been writing grants ever since I got there. It's a lot of things that I'm not responsible for. I don't do fundraising, but I do that. David came to me. I've been paid by Habitat to work in the Duval neighborhood for 4 years. Never a problem. Worked with the summer program, everything. He came in July and told me for the work that I had done that I had to use my PTO because they were not taking care of the initiative. They were not paying me to work for Duval. So I had to use my PTO in order to finish up our Summer Sling program. And I did that. There was a grant report that was due during that time, and we got awarded the second round of that same grant. So my work was overwhelmed. I had the ship contract, which he shouldn't have took, that he couldn't complete in time. I had 3 open projects left. He had promised me bonuses for my closed projects. I never got it. He had promised me, and when I started asking him about my money, I started asking him about the HOP loan balloon payments that he was giving to our folk. He started telling me, I'm not paying you to work in the community. That was on a Friday. On a Monday, I called him and I needed to take care of a legal matter. And I let him know that I wouldn't be in the office, but I would do that grant report now overdue when I got back. And his response to me was, don't come on our premises. When I said legal matter, which it had a family matter I had going on, he was assuming because he knew how he had mistreated me that I was handling a legal matter that had to do with him making me management. Because I had been pushing out, I had pushed back, y'all. I had so many complaints. I got emails. I asked him over and over. He kept telling me, I make the same thing every other manager makes. And he sees it and he doesn't have to prove it to me. However, I know the last management position that they posted was about $75,000. I was making at the time about 40. And so I was asking him about that differential. He told me he would address. He got back from Michigan. On Monday, he called me and told me we were having a meeting. The meeting was to tell me that I couldn't work in the community anymore, even though my job description wouldn't leave me any other work to do if I didn't do community work.
Carla, your sound has gone out. We can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah. It went out.
Your sound's out, Carla. We can't hear you.
We don't hear you.
Hold on 1 second. We apologize, everyone. Y'all know tech is good till it's not.
Yeah, she's not paying attention.
We apologize. We're going to give her a moment. Okay. So we'll give Carla a moment while when she realizes that we can't hear her. While she's doing that, I want to name some of Habitat's sponsors. And this is because Habitat has a pretty good name in the community, so people don't realize that these things are going on. But sponsors include Krispy Kreme, Joyfully Baked, Nancy's Bake Shop, Brother Cookie, Baker, Gigi's Cupcakes, Opus Coffee, Dana's Bakes and Cakes, First Magnitude, Upper Crust, Super Rail, Wine, Le Macaron, French Pastries. I can't read some of these logos, y'all. Cake Crazzle, Midnight Cookie. And then they have GRU, DX Web, North Florida Regional Medical Center, Custom Design Renovations LLC, Capital City Bank, Brenda and Earl Pickens, Jonesville Business Group, Team Dynamo, Focus Real Estate Group, Kim Kazamar, PhD. And then we also have Martha and John Wost, Gator Country Pest Control, McLeod General Trades, U.S. Title, Best Water Solutions, Radiant Credit Union, Accentria. These are they have some of the biggest donors in the community. And so I wanted to make sure that people are aware of that. We will actually put up a post that will let everyone know who these actual donors are because it is a part of the actual call to action. T, can you all hear us? We couldn't hear Carla. Can you hear us? One moment. We're coming back.
Okay.
Okay, perhaps. So we'll give them a moment. So what
I
I'm going to
text
do,
her.
okay. And while she's doing that, I'll actually go through the comments from everyone. Um, Reverend Carr Anderson says, my former student, hey. And then Pam
Hey.
Hunter asked if I may ask where this home is located. It is located in the neighborhood near the Cynthia Chestnut Park.
Mhm.
When I went out to see Miss Lee's
Cynthia
house,
Chestnut. I can go through and show them some of the cracks. They said it was the hairline, but this is not a hairline.
oh yeah,
That is like going down my walls.
Can you hear me, Shanae?
Yeah,
we
we can hear
can.
you.
Okay, yeah, I had jumped for a minute, not quite sure where I left off at, but just so you'll know, when Nikki first showed her pictures, this was hilarious. It wasn't hilarious, but hilarious that David Weiss would think that we're so ignorant as a people that we don't know what construction is supposed to look like. So when he came to me and I was concerned, I was like, David, look at her house, is falling apart. He says to me, the house isn't falling apart, Carla. You don't know anything about construction. The house is settling. House is settled. And I was like, I have the pleasure of living in a house that my mom has owned for all 50 years of my life. Yes,
Yeah.
there are a couple of cracks on the outside of the door. Never seen her house split in half. The girl's house looked like it's splitting in half,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't address it. And the other part of that is when they start complaining, they sell your mortgage. How in the world could you sell a mortgage on a house that somebody's been complaining about since it was 7 months old? You didn't sell the house. You didn't sell that mortgage before. You sold that mortgage in the middle of her complaint without addressing any of those issues. And if
Yep.
they're coming there to cost a brand new house, shame on them. Shame on them. Shame on the city of Gainesville and the Alachua County Board of County Commission if they give them one other piece of property. I don't have people complaining about backwards air conditions, about roofs not being put on correctly. There's a house that was being built when I started with Habitat. That was 3 years ago. This baby has had mold in her house the whole entire time. They're not pressure tested. I hear people complaining so much, and they come to me. I try to advocate, and I get hit on the wrist, and I'm quite sure they get ignored. There's been emails coming in, and they just don't address it. They just don't address it. They talk about our homeowners, and it doesn't sit well with me. They talk about our homeowners like there's some folk that are complaining against them, and as a matter of fact, some of them have the title of problem child. That's my
That's me.
problem child. Well, if you fix our house, she won't be a problem.
Yeah.
That was my stance. If you fix our house, she won't be a problem. So at the end of the day, what we're doing and what I'm doing, I opened a EEOC inquiry, and I got approved to go to the next step to request an interview. So I have requested my interview. In that process, they told me when they listened at everything I had to say, talked about my employment, I talked about my promise to management, I talked about working as a manager for over a year without compensation, I talked about winning a grant, competing for a grant and having them send back the money. That is not, the money doesn't, the grants that I write don't go to Habitat. They go to be used in the community. So whatever they took, they thought they was taken from me, they was taken from our community and our neighborhood revitalization partners, and we have about 12 of those. I don't work in a silo. I don't work by myself. I work in partnership and collaboration, and they killed that. We did some restructuring. I'm glad I got some great team members that are able to come in, and we're still able to have the impact in East Gainesville and Alachua County that we started having. But Habitat pulled their support from that program. Not only did they pull their support, get this, they dissolved the department, but then they took my position and reposted it. When they reposted the position, I found out it was created right after I talked to Nikki Lee. It was not created when they terminated me. It was created back in February. I started talking to Nikki in December and January. So in February, he had already decided to replace me. Only he couldn't find a reason because of my record. So he dissolved my department. He lied to me about my salary. He refused to pay me, all because I did my job that they hired me to do well.
And so I want to jump in and interject to tie it together for everyone. So when you see me ranting and cussing and fussing on a live, it is because of the things that are going on behind the scenes and the battles that are being fought that people are unaware of. What Miss Lee's story is actually the story of many of the people in Habitat. At each door that I knocked on, I found one woman who's been in her home in Celebration Oaks for some time that has not had any issues. But she was actually able to connect me with four other people in the same neighborhood or have somebody by MLK and the other places because the issues that we're actually talking about are so commonplace. I want to drive home because everybody likes to do things that make them feel good. So there's many people that donate to Habitat because it makes them feel good, but there's a level of accountability that we must have as it relates to organizations that are doing work in our communities. If those organizations are doing work but they're not equitable, they're not mindful of the people that they're serving, and they're serving this community as if they're doing us a favor, those are not the organizations that we want. The same way that the city and the county has gifted Habitat land, there's other entities and people who are more deliberate about building and bringing in some affordable housing models. Our issues is we're being pushed out of that. We're not allowed to be a part of any community engagement models. We're not allowed to be a part of any decisions that are being made by city and county staff. And those particular things have to change. And so even the reason that we have the information, that's the call to action, in order to sign up to get updates on this particular issue is because it has to be multi-pronged. Like the immediate ask is going to be to email the city and the county and the equity office and demand that that no more property is donated until discrimination and homeowners complaints are addressed effectively and efficiently. A second ask is to email the U.S. Habitat to demand the removal of David Weiss, Scott Winsler, and construction department because of homeowners complaints and employee discrimination. And the third one will be send email or call all donors or sponsors and provide full details of the complaint. We will lay that out because that's a lot of information. There is a lot of emails where those emails need to go out. So when you connect with me, instead of us trying to remember who all we need to connect with, it makes it easier for us to get the information that you need in order to be very successful. We are willing to help people to ghostwrite emails. We are willing to create email templates. We will be creating a petition. We just need those signatures. We can't continue to sit by the wayside and allow these things to happen in our community because it is contributing to some of the other issues. So while, and even too, I was very, very frustrated. I think a few weeks ago when one of the city commissioners, it's always that Habitat always gets the positive feedback and the positive traction whenever they build the homes, but no one's talking about what happens after. I talked to another resident. There's actually a big hole in her front yard that's like a sinkhole, and they've done nothing and said they're going to put a mat. That's actually dangerous. And then are we going to do something now, or will we wait until somebody is seriously injured or hurt before we decide to take action? And so I'm just going to go over the comments and any questions that we can answer them before we leave. We appreciate you all for tuning in. We hope that you actually share this live video with everyone via social media, but also in your private text messages. We hope that you sign up and you're willing to follow up to help us in this initiative. Pam Hawthorne asked, where is this home located? I was stating it's located in the neighborhood near Cynthia Chestnut Park, but the same issues that Ms. Lee is having. There's the homes in Celebration Oaks, which is over off of, I think that's 19th or 20th, right near Green Tree. There's homes over by MLK, and also some of the homes that are by Duval that are having the exact same issues. Pastor Anderson says, oh, wow, this is so unfortunate. Sorry, Nikki, I'm praying with you. Elizabeth Hawk says, so new construction is falling apart because they did such a shoddy job. This is outrageous. Absolutely is. And it's not just one home. It's not just a one-off. And even when I reached out, that's what they were trying to state, but there's so many. I know I'm going to get down to Ms. Robinson, and I talked to her earlier. I switched phones, Ms. Robinson, so I couldn't find your contact information. But because now is the time to proceed forward with litigation, please reach out to me. If you inbox me, I'll give you my new number. Kim and Pam, you all did reactions. Sarah, yes, Rockwell says this is not livable at all. It sounds like they messed up the foundation, so the whole house is unstable. Sarah, that is, and there's at least 5 of the homes of the people that I've talked to, the same thing has happened. And so they are stuck in these homes. There is no good way or plausible way out of these homes. And then someone said, be encouraged. And To trapping people in mortgages and bad homes. Absolutely. And I want to point out forcing people to take out HOP loans, that is absolutely predatory. We will need help with public records requests because I know that there's a few homeowners that stated that via email, they expressed their concern regarding taking out these second mortgages and these loans. And so being able to help build that case in predatory lending practices. And basically, they have them paying for a home twice. So when they're thinking that they're having savings, they really don't. And it sounds like there's enough people for a class action lawsuit. Sarah, that's where we're going with this. We wanted to make sure that we put this out here and drew attention in order to bring other litigants forward. Um, and then Carolyn says, I think Habitat has very high overhead and it might not be a very efficient program. It may be an obsolete model. Carolyn, I actually agree. I think part of the frustration is trying to get people in positions of power to understand that we need to be creative and bringing people to the table that actually have solutions that are viable. There's other models that are throughout the country that have been proven to work. We are so busy showing people, like, look at me, I did something, that many people are not willing to step outside the box. And I'm going to throw in a shameless plug to other people that are tuning in. When Carla has started the CDC, the Community Development Corporation, having homes built under a CDC would stop some of these things because then there's an accountability that Habitat should actually have that they do not. And then also with the CDC, because equity is built into the mission and the vision, that we are not telling people, well, at least they gave you a house when they didn't give them anything. Or even if they had given someone anything, to think that you should be subjected and accept just whatever we throw at you. That's so very dehumanizing.
It is. And I just wanted to point out too that that was one of our major concerns about those HOP loans is that the average person that's joining our program are in their 30s. By the time this balloon payment becomes um by the time the balloon payment
Immature.
becomes due, that's a second mortgage for $50,000. And if
Yep.
that is how you're using to keep the house affordable, it's not affordable because you're tacking it on to the end. And so one of the things and one of the problems that I have with like Habitat and the way that they put their information out to like the city of Gainesville and the Board of County Commission, like they're doing something with home affordability, but they're not. Because if you give me a house that's $120,000 and I got to go buy 4 humidifiers, I got to constantly seal, I got to run my children back and forth to the doctor, and I got another payment that's going to become due when I'm 80 years old,
Yep.
then it's not affordable. Somebody's paying. It's just not Habitat. So it's not affordable. And the city of Gainesville and the Board of County Commission need to understand that. These houses are costing these people more. And we are leaving them in worse shape than what we found them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. LaShondra Jenkins says this is really sad because there have been several class action lawsuits for homes built back in the early 90s in Crosstown being built with dry rotted wood and other faulty materials. Manita Robinson, they forced me to get the HOP loan when originally that wasn't the agreement. They forced me after I finished all my hours and built the home. I am so sorry to hear that. And
They do
I
me
like,
like
am
that too.
I am too, baby. I am
yeah,
so sorry. And here it is. What I think the biggest thing, and I experienced this as an employee at the time that my department was dissolved and I was being harassed by Mr. Weiss. He was well aware that I had become separated. I had a brand new place I needed to live. Both of my grandparents were sick. But and it's the same way with some of our homeowners. They feel like they're in a desperate situation, and so in this desperate situation, oh, she needs somewhere to stay, she's gonna sign. And in a lot of cases they're right, because we need places to live, because we want our own houses, because we have children, and some of the stories, they only help people who are going through something hard,
Yep.
right? And so a lot of the people are sleeping on the floors of their relatives' houses. So yeah, it's easy for you to pass them some paperwork and tell them, but is that who we are? Where's the humanity in that? There's no humanity in that. There's no humanity. And I already knew at the beginning when Kathy All was the board chair, and she was an investment banker for Edward Jones and David Hillman, who, by the way, also is a board member and gets paid the bill. So there's no equitable procurement, which is another thing that I challenged them on, was having board members working for us and being contracted and paid. We have one board member that was over the finances. And so having those type of dynamics, that's not humane. That's not just shady. It is illegal. and it needs to be addressed. When we look at habitat bylaws, the bylaws that they have registered with the IRS haven't been amended in over a year, and they're still doing some practices. One of those bylaws say they shouldn't even have a COO, that they need to operate with an executive director, not a chief operational officer. But what happened was Scott Winslow was so successful in making sure that we had corporate America serving on the board because we need more money, in his words, that they demoted him. Was the first thing that they did was took away his position, and then they brought in David Weiss. And I want you to be mindful what happens when you hire a degree instead of hiring experience or somebody who's tied to it. I know city of Gainesville, we love to look outside for talent. We love to go to another city and state, but you got people that are not connected to our community that don't care. For the whole 2 years that David worked with me, he never set foot in our community, attended one neighborhood revitalization meeting. And I believe that dynamic allowed him to stay distant from our homeowners so he doesn't have an emotional tie. And so when it's easy for him to make these decisions, and he always tells us that he only operates at the direction of the board. He said he doesn't make decisions of his own. Everything that he does is at the direction of the board. So I would argue that the entire board needs to be replaced. And that is what I'm asking you. Either that or they better get their head man into shape, and because he's putting them out there as being the ones that are making these decisions. So even as we're talking about David Weiss, David has always told us in every staff meeting, and I got a couple of my evaluations is in there as well, that he takes direction from the board, period. And so all of these decisions, all of these things that he's doing to our homeowners, what he's doing to me, and I'm not the only employee. I am not the only employee. There's one employee that's still employed, and I won't call her name because she, like they say, she got to live there with them. So she's employed with them. I won't call her name in public, but she is a part of my documents. But there's another employee that they treat way worse, and it's always a female. Discrimination from the beginning, always a female. And so um, like Shanae said, with those asks, it's really important. I know emails are tedious. I hate doing them all day myself. We will help. I will make a template. I already have information that I sent to Shanae. So we got documents that are already running. You know, we're intentional about things that we do. This is not impromptu. The timing, we wanted to coincide this meeting along with their signature event, where they are probably standing in front of a bunch of people with money, telling them how great their program is, probably still lying about doing neighborhood revitalization and how they're working in East Gainesville when it's not so. But at the end of the night, they may leave with a whole lot of money. But to do what with? We need new leadership at Habitat for Humanity. There are habitats all over the country that have very good programs, innovative programs. And that is what we were working towards, which is why we won those grants that Mr. Weiss took away from us and sent back.
Thank you. So we do have Wayne from another former, and or they still may be an employee, but they describe Habitat as a toxic work environment that has major disrespect toward clients. There's constant troubleshooting of bad work done by volunteers. And specifically, someone named Christine Thompson was named as problematic. And this actually is a person that currently is working with Habitat and willing in order to help move this initiative forward. So go back to the comments. Pastor Anderson says, Nikki Lee, I'm so proud of you. Sarah says, this is evil, completely evil. Sarah, unfortunately, this is a norm. I want to state that this is a norm. Smitty B says, oh no. Pastor Anderson says, she is so upset right now. Lacey Lou says, gotta go, but looking forward to watching the rest of this later. Sorry to hear about this ongoing in the city. You ladies are truly superheroes. Probably they will let you know that your sound was out. Somebody else came in here clown. I know a hitman for Lolo. And Ellen asks, how are they allowed to sell the mortgage? I mean, Ellen, so the way that mortgages work, a lot of people don't know that. So typically outside of the there's an arsenal of mortgages. And so when you you're always able to do that. So even if they say a person got approved by FHA, it can be sold to another lender, and it can be that they sold it because they didn't want to take the loss, and the other lender was willing to take the risk. It could be because they sold it to the other lender who's now going to collect interest. And so there's a few actual homeowners. That's what happened after they got into their homes. They've been in there from 6 months to a year. Their mortgage payments have now gone up a few $100s a month because Habitat has now sold their mortgage. So it's almost like a bait and switch. So they're getting people to come to the program for the 0% interest for the mortgage, but then they're turning around and then selling the mortgage off, and then now interest is now accruing, which raises their mortgage payment.
And not just that, Shanae, the other sad part about that is they don't just sell. Once they sell that mortgage, I had one homeowner. She was like, they sold my mortgage to a company and they sold it to another company and they sold it to another company, and they just tack on their interest and just handle her however they can, and she's stuck.
Yep.
That
And
is what the Habitat program is supposed to have been created to stop. And it was doing good. We were not building a whole lot of houses, but we were trying our best to put people in houses. After they finished with the Celebration Oaks and they started rebuilding, I was thinking under new leadership, that these houses was going to be different quality, which was what the promise was. You know, just like somebody had mentioned in the comments, yes, in the 90s, there was a big uproar about, the quality of the homes, and they called themselves doing a little shifting, but in the Celebration Oaks neighborhood, when I went out there, I did a door-to-door in the Celebration Oaks neighborhood when I was first hired with Habitat, just to find out about these homeowners complaining. Just like Shanae, I found the first two persons that was in their houses that were like, yeah, my house was built. But those two persons also let me know that, yeah, what they did for my house, they didn't level their ground. They just started building. And then all of a sudden, they were gone and not accountable to these people. They've been collecting money, homeowner dues from the Celebration Oaks neighborhood since it was built. None of them people have ever seen that money or know what it go to. And if they say it goes to clean their grounds, I would beg to differ, because I've done a cleanup out there where I had to dig up beer bottles and glass so that the kids can play on the playground. So nobody's been maintaining that property. I would want to know what's been going with that, because I think they paid something like $100. Oh, and not just that, when their houses were built, they were sold a warranty that will help with help fixing their house for the first couple of years. Most people that were sold that warranty told them once their house was completed, that thing was canceled and it was over, and they were responsible for their own houses and fixing them. And that's not fair. They're going in and they're pulling people into this program with promises, and then they're defaulting on their promises, and that's wrong.
That's it. We appreciate you all for tuning in. We're coming to the end. If there were any additional last minute questions, please drop those actually in the chat. Um, Again, the ask are to make sure you share this at this particular time. Please get connected with us so that we can actually help to advocate for these families, but then also advocate for our community. This speaks to a bigger issue. This is normal. So for many people who are shocked, much of the advocacy that I do are people being demonized, mistreated, doors being slammed in their face when they are rightfully advocating for themselves. Yes, we do have a major affordable housing shortage, but this is not the way that it should be done. And then we must be the people to build a capacity and push to build an infrastructure for much better models. And so with Habitat, like many other nonprofits, their money should be used in order to reinvest into the organization, not for the board members to be rich, or not for them to be comfortable and not care about the people that they serve.
And especially when it's involving kids.
Absolutely. That
'Cause
makes it
I
even
have a
worse.
whole 6-year-old and my oldest finna have a baby. And when you walk on this floor, it's shifting. Like literally, I was walking through this hallway and my shoe went through the floor.
I'm unfortunate.
And that's ridiculous.
Okay.
Hmm.
Right. And also to let you know, Miss Lee, there will be news outlets that'll be reaching out into you, Carla, as well. After this, if anybody has any questions, you all know how to reach me. If we're all done, did anybody else have anything to say? We'll actually log off.
All right.
Carla,
Thank
I
y'all. Have a good
appreciate
night.
you for being so
Thank
bold.
you.
Nikki, I appreciate you for using your voice.
Oh, no
And
problem.
together we'll get through to the end.
Yep. Y'all have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.